Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of No Notions Travel. It's just me, Jack. So today we're going to be talking about electrical scooters. I'm sure you're very familiar with electrical scooters. If not, this will be a learning experience. Electrical scooters have kind of become the biggest thing at the moment in a lot of massive capital cities in Europe. I mean, it's very divisive on what people think about them. Some people hate them, some people love them.
You know, it's like one day everything was fine and the next day there were these fucking scooters everywhere.
I am in the latter party where I actually really like electrical scooters. I had a trip a while ago where I went to Berlin and all I went on was electrical scooters. So that's my main point of reference for them. They have come into fashion in Ireland a lot more so recently. I'm sure you've seen dozens of people on the streets driving them around. So at the moment in Ireland, it's actually illegal to drive one of the scooters on Irish roads. The usual practice would be to ride your electrical scooter in a bike path, or not exactly on a footpath if someone's there, but people tend to use footpaths, but not on the road. And that's where a lot of countries between Ireland and the rest of Europe differ. We haven't had the mass migration of companies coming over to Ireland to have them in cities. I've been to Berlin, and if you've been to a European city like since 2019, you've probably seen them everywhere. They litter the streets. They're actually awful. They're like essentially just dumped a lot of the places, and like I know personally, like I would have left them at a station where other ones would be, but a lot of people in cities just don't really care where they kind of put them. So first of all, there are a number of companies in the world that offer these lovely scooters. I'm most familiar with Lime, and it's a company that I used in Berlin, but there's also other companies like Voy, Tier and Bolt, and they offer basically the same product, different prices, and some companies are more widely available in certain cities, and others aren't. So, getting to renting them abroad, looking at this website, Zag, they have a map of countries that offer electrical scooters, and the number one city that they have is Oslo in Norway, and the Norwegian capital currently hosts 19,000 scooters across various suppliers. And this website has mapped out 15,366 of those scooters that are from certain companies and have color coded them all. So you can see in this map here that it goes, the Voy company is in red, and then you have the Bolt, which is amber, the Lime, which is green of course, and then the Tier that's in blue. And you can just see the mass of like the absolute mass of scooters in the city, and it is kind of wild looking at a photo of it now, because in my experience anyway, when you see it, like you see there's a lot of them, but you don't realize the extent of it. And like obviously there's a lot of Lime scooters that will be focused towards the center of the cities, and then other scooters will be more residential areas or the outskirts of the main city centers. But it is fascinating to look at a map of this because it's chaotic. What is going on? Along with Oslo, and there are a number of other cities in Europe which offer the scooters. We look at some cities like Rome, Madrid, Zurich, Berlin, which is the one that I had my first experience with scooters in, and it is just wild to see because obviously you see companies that aren't in certain cities and there are companies that are. I can't personally speak for the other companies. I've only used one company when I was in Berlin, and that feels like a perfect segue into my Berlin trip. I went with the company called Lime. It's a very good scooter. It's very handy. I had a great time using them. Me and Roma will be talking about our individual trips to Berlin in another video at some point. This is just basically focusing on the electrical scooters in Berlin for this video, because Roma's never ridden one, so it's a Jack affair for this episode. So I had, you know what, I'll be totally honest, I had a very good experience in Berlin with them. When I got to Berlin, I was dreading having to take the metro, and on my first day there, I started seeing these electrical scooters, and I had heard of cities like Montreal and I think LA as well being just littered with them. Like, you know, you'll see a shopping trolley in a river. That level of like just disposability. I was like, I'm seeing people around the city riding these, and I want to see what all the fuss is about. I'll rent it out for one even. I'll see how it goes. Where I was staying with a friend of a friend, and I just want to see just what is going on, because like it was everywhere in Berlin, everywhere. So took it out and went to wherever I was going to go, and it was the most painless experience I've ever had in my life. I used Google Maps on my phone. Went by the car route, which is something I want to get into now in a second. But I went by the like driving route on Google Maps, got to where I needed to go, logged off of the scooter, went to my thing, came out, my scooter was still there, logged back in, and went back to the apartment, and that was it. And then that was it for the whole trip. Every morning I would get up early, get some breakfast, get a scooter, go where I needed to go, and that would be my day. And I went all around the place. And the thing is, it's hard to talk about a price point because I use them so much. But what I will say, and I mentioned it just there, that at the start of 2019, Germany had actually legalized the use of e-scooters on roadways, and I got lucky. That was literally it. I got very lucky. I had a great experience rolling up to the Berlin Wall, just riding up and down it, getting off it, and then walking around looking at the wall and stuff like that, and then going from there to somewhere else and to somewhere else. It was just a very, very pleasant experience. And for Berlin, I had a pleasant experience. The only problem was, I can't say it's a negative, is that they ended up kind of, you notice it more when you're riding them, that they are just kind of everywhere. It's not nice. It's like it's exactly like when trash is just left around the city and it's left to disrepair, basically. Somehow the city would reset every night, and that's something that I found out in the research of this video. I have to say, I had a very positive experience. I'm a little bit annoyed now that I hadn't tried the metro at all. I tried the regular trains in the city, but I didn't try the metro, and it's one thing that I didn't do in Berlin that I'm kind of like regretting now at this point. But another time, we'll be going back at some point, and that'll be that. So what a lot of people want to know is price and pricing of the scooters. So to set up your account and use a scooter for the first time, it costs €1 to start, and then after that it's 15 cents a minute afterwards. As I said, I used Lime scooters a lot of the time during my trip in Berlin, and with that, from leaving in the morning to coming back in the evening, it really did add up, and you don't really realize how far out you're going. And like, I went loads of places, all over the place, and I do have to say, like, it did take a chunk out of my budget, but at the same time, I don't really regret it as much, because it was such a convenient way of getting around, where you weren't really, when you're taking the metro and taking the trains and taking buses and stuff like that, like, you're walking around the route that the city has chosen or the companies have chosen. But with the scooters, it's as handy as driving or as walking to a location. It's your own route you can choose, and the streets were so good in Berlin that I had such a good time, and it was so convenient for the amount of days that I had and how much I wanted to do, that it was just handier just to go and take a Lime scooter. So I had a great time. One thing I will say is, if you are getting a scooter and you're using Google Maps, bring a battery. One of the evenings I was on the way to somewhere. This is like 6 p.m, so I think I was on the way to get food in the evening, and my phone died, and I didn't know what way I was going, so I just had to like call it quits and just go back to somewhere else I'd been before, because I kind of knew the way back then. But if you are traveling on a scooter like that and using Google Maps and such, bring a portable battery charger or anything just to keep your phone juiced. And along with price, something that I always wondered about as well, because somehow scooters just magically disappear and then reappear fully charged. So in research for this, it actually turns out that there are people in cities like Berlin or Lisbon or Zurich that charge the scooters at night. At 9 p.m, these people, called juicers by the way, pick up scooters off the streets and charge them every night. So while you might be out and you came, say if you came to a restaurant late, like late in the evening on a scooter, and you pull up, you go in for the restaurant for 2 hours, and you come back out, your scooter won't necessarily be gone, but if you're looking to get a new scooter after 9 p.m, it might be a little bit more difficult. And that's something that I found in a lot of my research people warning about, is the possibility of getting stuck somewhere you're not familiar with because you had taken a scooter too. Or if you walked somewhere and you're just feeling like getting a scooter at night, just be careful if you are traveling these cities, because there is a chance that you could end up without an easy way back. And again, like as always, taxis exist and Uber exists and all those different apps exist for getting taxis and such. So there are other ways. But in the conversation of scooters, it is something that I was surprised about. I never really noticed. But if you are out late at night and plan to get a scooter home, just be careful, because you might not be guaranteed one. So I think that's basically everything. I think scooters are fantastic. I think they're a great alternative for public transport in cities abroad. If you're solo tripping like I did in Berlin, it's fantastic because you can just go wherever you want. You're not relying on someone else. And to be totally honest, if you set aside money to pay for the scooters and not have to worry about it, then I think it's completely worth it to go, because 15 cents a minute is surprisingly good. And if you're going to main city, if you're going on city trips, they are a fantastic way to get around. And the only thing I will say is just be careful when you are driving on roads if there is no cycle path available, because it is something that could lead to a lot of dangerous situations. But overall, I really like scooters, I have to say. And if you have any opinions of electrical scooters, I know they've come into fashion now in Ireland recently, and I'd like to hear if you have any hot takes on the lovely scooters. And put them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell button to keep up to date with all our videos on affordable holidays. And thank you for watching, and goodbye.
I just think people should drive, okay? I don't think people should scoot. I just hope the future isn't scooting.